Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The recitation is Manj Mahalla Panjama, Hukami Varsan Laghe Meha, Sajan Sant Mil Naam Japeha, Seetal Sant Sahaj Sukh Paya, Thand Pai Prabh Ape, Sab Kich Bahuto Bahut Upaya, Kar Kirpa प्रभ सगल रजाया, दात करहो मेरे दातारा, जी जंत सब त्रापै जियो, साचा साहिब साची नाई, गुर प्रसाद तिस सदा ध्याई, जन्म मरण पै काटे मोहा, बिन से सोग संतापे जियो, सास सास नानक सालाहे, सिमरत नाम काटे सब फाहे, पूरन आस करी खिन भीतर, हर 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 गुण जापे जियो. Let's take the Sabad from the top, section by section, and attempt a free translation of each of the sections with any interpretation we might have. Hukami Varsan Laghe Meha, Sajan Sant Mil Naam Japeha, Seetal Sant Sahaj Sukh Paya, Thand Pai Prabh Ape Jiyo. So freely translated, Guru Arjan here is speaking about the state of his own mind. And he says, when I met the beloved enlightener, Sajan Sant, and learnt to assimilate self-knowledge, Naam Japeha, then the mind was soothed, Seetal, man Seetal ho jana, and became serene, Sant, Seetal Sant. And then what happens is, from that tranquil mind arose spontaneously, Sahaj, a blissful state of well-being and wholeness, of comfort, Sukh. And this placid state, which is also called Thand, coolness, the quality of coolness. This state is the gift of the Prabh self. Pai Prabh Ape. And then on this ground, the Master, the Supreme Self, the Hukami, Varsan Laghe Meha, in its compassion showers Varsan, its highest wisdom, Laghe Meha. So the metaphor of a cloud is used here for the eternal wisdom of the Supreme Self, the Hukmi. Hukami Varsan Laghe Meha. Like a cloud, this wisdom showers the ground of our being without restriction. And the cloud is also a signifier for a fully awakened mind, which is a conduit for this wisdom. So a twofold process is at work here. First, the necessity of embracing or meeting the beloved enlightener, who's been described as Sajan Sant. Sajan typically is someone that is a beloved, a lover. Sant, of course, one who has perfected the mind or controlled the mind. So it is the enlightener who acts as the conduit and instructs the mind in self-knowledge, Naam Japeha, from Jap, which means to understand, to study, to gain insight, to assimilate, all of these put together. Not just one single value, but a spectrum of values. And so the message here in the first section is that the mind has to be tamed. It has to be reined in, made serene and unruffled before it can even receive this wisdom. So it has to be primed, in other words. And this occurs through the cultivation of virtues, which is anchoring the mind in the proper value system. And then decoding the knowledge of the self as it is in Gurbani. This is a simultaneous process. Gurbani is like code that needs to be decoded. It's written with its own syntax, with its own pattern, with its own method. And it takes an enlightener to teach you that, or a sangat. Only then does the eternal wisdom shower its grace, because the mind then opens up. And when it opens up to what is always present. And moving on to the second section, Guruji says, Sab kich bahto bahut upaya, kar kirpa sagal prabh sagal rajaya. From the compassionate rain of self-knowledge, kar kirpa, the self bestowed the crop of virtue. So showers bring crops. Here the crop is one of virtue, and the crop of virtue is in abundance, a plenty, bahto bahut. The mind is suffused with awareness, sagal rajaya, satiation, completely drenched. And then Guruji pleads, Mere Datara, my benefactor, Daat karo, please have charity towards all creation, ji jant, so that your awareness bathes everything, sab trape jiyo. And here the Guruji is giving us an option, Sacha Sahib Sachi Nai, Gur Prasad Sada Te Ai, Janam Maran Pay Kate, Moha Bin Se Sog Santape Jiyo. Eternal, he says, is the master, Sacha Sahib, and immutable, the law, Sachi Nai, Hukam. So with the insight of Guru wisdom, always keep the mind centered in awareness of the self, this Sadatyai. And then the delusion that we have of birth and death, which arouses in us a primal fear, is dispelled. Janama maran pay kate moha. The mind is freed from the fire of passions, rage and suffering. Binse sog santape jiyo. And in the last section, Saas Saas Nanak Salahe Simrat Naam Kate Sab Phahe Puran Aas Kari Khin Pitar Har 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 Gun Jape Jiyo. With every breath, Saas Saas, always Nanak remains reconciled or in submission to this law, this hukam. By recollecting or awakening to the self-knowledge, Simrat Naam, all bondage is cut asunder, kate sab pahe. Where the virtue of the Har Self are realized, vices are seized and removed. Har Har. The primal yearning of union, Puran Aas, is fulfilled within the mind, Puran. In the flash of an instant, Kari Kin Pitar. Puran Aas, this is our primal desire, the longing, have a primal need, and a longing to find the self, the essence from which we are all constituted. The self is always present, but we remain immune to it because our minds end up building a catacomb of delusion and pride around itself. And just like city lights dim or diminish the light of stars that are above, making us unaware and unappreciative of a starry night, similarly the mind vaults itself into a madhouse, so to speak, of its own making. And the universe, which exists within and outside of us, is governed by an immutable law called hukam. Now, we are free to live in concord with it or in dissonance. We can obey or we can flout it. Concordance, attunement will lead to freedom from the self-perpetuating delusion of the self, while the latter course of action will only sink us deeper into the self-created prison we already are. And a mind that is suffused with virtue and self-knowledge will then transcend its ego consciousness and develops a universal vision. It is filled with a sense of abundance, bahut bahut, and seeks to work for the betterment, upliftment of humanity. With those thoughts, until the next time, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.